With trembling hands, Maya opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, the words scrawled with urgency. Their parents spoke of suspicions, of feeling pressured by the lawyer to make changes they weren't comfortable with. "I don't trust him anymore," the letter read. "If anything happens to me, promise me you'll fight. Promise me you'll protect what matters." The siblings stared at the letter, their emotions a whirlwind of sorrow, anger, and resolve. This was it. Proof. Not just of the lawyer's deception, but of their parents' true intentions. But if you've just stumbled upon this channel for the first time, don't just scroll past. Hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss another mind-bending, one-of-a-kind story. Done it yet? Come on, don't leave that button hanging. Give it a tap and unlock the full experience. Trust me, you'll want front row seats for what's coming next. A trusted lawyer, a grieving family, and a betrayal no one saw coming. Alex and Maya stood in the shadow of their childhood home, the air thick with memories and loss. Their parent, the cornerstone of their lives, was gone, leaving behind not just a legacy of love, but an estate meant to secure their future. This wasn't just a house. It was their story. The creak of the front door, the laughter that echoed in the halls, the garden where their parent taught them resilience. It was a sanctuary. For years, the family had entrusted their affairs to one man, a polished, silver-tongued lawyer whose handshake once felt like a lifeline. He had been there for their parent through the highs and lows, an ever-present figure who was more than just legal counsel. He was a confidant, a guardian of their most private matters. Alex and Maya had no reason to doubt him. When their parent passed, the siblings turned to this man, seeking guidance, comfort, and clarity. He spoke with the gravity of someone who understood the weight of their grief. "Trust me," he'd said, his voice smooth as a river stone. And they did. They trusted him because, for years, he had been the bridge between the family's dreams and their reality. The estate wasn't vast, but it was everything. The family home, a modest but sturdy symbol of perseverance. Savings, carefully built over decades of quiet sacrifices. And belongings, priceless not for their monetary value, but for the memories they carried. These were the threads of their parents' life, woven into the fabric of their own. The will, they assumed, was a mere formality. Their parent had been meticulous, leaving nothing to chance. But when the lawyer finally revealed its contents, the world as Alex and Maya knew it came crashing down. The family home. Sold. The savings. Vanished. The belongings. Scattered like ash in the wind. The lawyer's voice was steady, almost cold, as he read the document. A document that rewrote their parents' wishes entirely. A document that seemed foreign and cruel, as though it had been written by a stranger. Alex and Maya sat frozen, their grief now mingled with disbelief. How could this be? Their parent had always spoken of fairness, of ensuring their children would be cared for. And yet, here was this man, this trusted figure, presenting a reality that felt like a slap in the face. The betrayal wasn't just in the words, but in the smirk that lingered at the edges of his mouth. Subtle, almost imperceptible, but there. A smirk that said, "I've won." But Alex and Maya weren't just grieving children. They were their parents' children. They had inherited more than memories. They had inherited strength, determination, and a refusal to back down. They began to dig. They combed through old documents, bank statements, emails, anything that could shed light on what had happened. What they uncovered was a web of deceit, spun over years with careful precision. The lawyer, the man who had been their parents' confidant, had been siphoning away their legacy piece by piece. Fake documents. Forged signatures. Loopholes exploited in ways they could barely comprehend. This wasn't just betrayal. It was exploitation of the deepest kind. But the siblings weren't alone. Their parents' friends, once hesitant to get involved, began to speak up. Stories of questionable advice, unexplained transfers, and whispered suspicions began to emerge. The lawyer's polished image started to crack, revealing the greed that had festered beneath the surface. Alex and Maya knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The legal battle would be grueling, the emotional toll immense. But this was more than a fight for property or money. This was a fight for their parents' memory. For justice. For the truth. Because some betrayals cut deeper than words. And some legacies are worth every ounce of the battle. Weeks turned into months. The lawyer, once so readily available, became a ghost cloaked in excuses. The paperwork isn't finalized, he'd say with a practiced tone of authority. There are complications with the estate, he'd claim, his words landing like fog, thick, misleading, and impossible to grasp. Every phone call, every meeting, seemed to lead nowhere. Alex and Maya were patient at first. Grief has a way of slowing time, and they understood that estates were complicated things. But as days bled into weeks and weeks into months, something began to gnaw at the edges of their trust. His tone grew clipped, his responses curt. He avoided eye contact, dodged questions, and always seemed to have somewhere else to be. It was Maya who first voiced it aloud, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. Something's not right. Alex, the logical one, tried to calm her. It's probably just red tape, he said, though even he didn't believe his own words. The delays weren't just inconvenient, they were deliberate. Finally, after relentless pressure, the lawyer agreed to schedule the will reading. The siblings arrived at his office, a sterile, cold space that seemed to mirror the man himself. The air was heavy with unspoken tension. On his desk sat a single envelope, its edges too crisp, too new for something that should have been prepared long ago. He began to read. The words fell like stones into a silent abyss. The family home, gone. The savings, redirected. The belongings, claimed by an unknown third party. And the bulk of the estate, transferred into the hands of the lawyer himself. For a moment, Alex and Maya couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt, the walls closing in as the reality of what they were hearing sank in. Maya's voice broke the silence, sharp with disbelief. This can't be right. This can't be what they wanted. Alex, always the steady one, felt his composure crack. There's no way. There's no way our parent would leave you everything. His voice rose, echoing through the room, but the lawyer didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, his face a mask of feigned sympathy. I'm just the executor, he said smoothly, his words oiled with practiced detachment. This is what the will states. I'm sorry if it's not what you expected. But there was no sorrow in his eyes. Only satisfaction. A quiet, simmering satisfaction that sent chills down their spines. As they left the office that day, the siblings were consumed by disbelief and fury. The world they had known, their parents' love, the home that had sheltered them, the future they had trusted, had been stolen in broad daylight. But in the pit of their despair, a spark ignited. Questions began to swirl, whispered by instinct, fueled by the unmistakable scent of betrayal. They couldn't explain why, but they felt compelled to go back to the house. Their childhood home, now suffused with loss, called to them like a beacon. They began sifting through their parents' belongings, searching for something. Anything. They didn't know what they were looking for, only that they had to keep looking. It was Maya who found it. In the back of a drawer, beneath a stack of faded photographs and yellowed papers, her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. She pulled it out, a small, tarnished key, its surface worn and smooth from years of handling. It wasn't labeled, but something about it felt significant. What's this? She asked, holding it up to Alex. His eyes narrowed as he took it from her, turning it over in his hands. There was a faint inscription, barely legible, the name of a bank and a string of numbers. A safe deposit box, he murmured, a flicker of hope sparking in his chest. The next morning, they stood in the hushed, sterile vault of the bank, the key trembling in Alex's hand as he unlocked the box. It slid open with the faintest groan, revealing its contents, a stack of papers and a sealed envelope. The papers were unmistakable. An earlier version of the will, dated months before the one the lawyer had presented. It was clear, concise, and left everything, the house, the savings, the belongings, to Alex and Maya. The signature was their parents', unmistakable in its careful curves and loops. But it was the envelope that truly stopped them. On the front, in their parents' familiar handwriting, were the words, "For Alex and Maya. Trust no one else." With trembling hands, Maya opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, the words scrawled with urgency. Their parents spoke of suspicions, of feeling pressured by the lawyer to make changes they weren't comfortable with. "I don't trust him anymore," the letter read. "If anything happens to me, promise me you'll fight. Promise me you'll protect what matters." The siblings stared at the letter, their emotions a whirlwind of sorrow, anger, and resolve. This was it. Proof. Not just of the lawyer's deception, but of their parents' true intentions. But as the weight of their discovery settled over them, a chilling realization followed. They had evidence, yes. But would it be enough? Would the courts listen? Would they be able to untangle the web of lies the lawyer had spent years weaving? They didn't have answers. But one thing was certain, the fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The truth has a way of hiding in shadow, buried beneath layers of lies, waiting for someone brave enough to dig it out. For Alex and Maya, the discovery of the hidden will and their parents' desperate letter was just the beginning. They weren't just fighting for their inheritance, they were fighting for justice. And they knew they couldn't do it alone. Their first step was to find someone who could unravel the tangled web of deceit the lawyer had spun. They sought out a new attorney, someone with a reputation for fearless advocacy and a nose for corruption. Her name was Evelyn Grant. Sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, she was the kind of lawyer who smelled lies the way a wolf smells fear. Sitting in Evelyn's office, the siblings laid everything out, the forged will, the hidden letter, the lawyer's evasive behavior. Evelyn listened in silence, her fingers steepled beneath her chin, her eyes glinting with something between curiosity and outrage. "This isn't just negligence," she said finally, her voice cold and certain. "This is fraud. And if we're going to prove it, we'll need more than just a hunch. We'll need evidence. Solid, undeniable evidence." Evelyn brought in a private investigator, a wiry man with a quiet intensity named Carson. He wasn't the type to ask unnecessary questions. His job was to find facts, and he did it with surgical precision. It didn't take long for cracks to appear in the lawyer's story. Carson examined the contested will with the scrutiny of a jeweler inspecting a counterfeit gem. Handwriting experts confirmed what Alex and Maya already suspected: the signature wasn't their parents'. The strokes were wrong, the pressure inconsistent. It was a forgery, plain and simple. But it didn't end there. Carson dug deeper, combing through bank records, emails, and legal filings. What he uncovered painted a damning picture. The lawyer had filed amendments to the estate after their parents' death, amendments that conveniently funneled money into his own accounts. The paper trail was subtle but undeniable, a mosaic of greed and manipulation. The siblings were stunned. Each new revelation felt like another betrayal, another wound. But Evelyn was unshaken. "This is good," she said, her voice steely. "We're building a case. But if we're going to take him down, we need to understand why. People don't just wake up one day and decide to ruin lives. This isn't his first time. It's a pattern. You didn't land here by accident. Stories like this find the curious. So while fate's got your attention, go ahead and hit subscribe. Not just for the stories you've heard, but for the ones waiting in the shadows. Still thinking about it? Don't. The next twist might just change everything, and you'll want to be here when it drops." And so Carson widened his search, peeling back the layers of the lawyer's life. What he found was a past as dark as the man's intentions. Years ago, before he had ever crossed paths with Alex and Maya's family, the lawyer had been implicated in another case. A widow, elderly and alone, had accused him of altering her late husband's will. The story was eerily familiar: forged signatures, suspicious amendments, and an estate that vanished into thin air. But back then, the widow hadn't been able to prove her claims. The lawyer had walked away unscathed, his reputation tarnished but intact. It wasn't just one case, though. Carson found whispers of others: disgruntled clients, unexplained discrepancies, settlements that had been quietly swept under the rug. The lawyer had built a career not on trust, but on exploitation, preying on the vulnerable and grieving. The siblings were horrified. How has he gotten away with this for so long? Alex demanded, his voice tight with anger. Evelyn's expression hardened. Because people like him know how to intimidate. They know how to cover their tracks, how to make their victims feel powerless. But he made a mistake this time. He underestimated you. Their case took a dramatic turn when Carson tracked down one of the lawyer's previous victims. A man named Richard, whose family had been torn apart by the same kind of fraud. Richard was reluctant at first. He had spent years trying to put the ordeal behind him, the scars too deep and fresh to reopen. But eventually, he agreed to meet with Alex and Maya. "I know what you're going through," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of his own story. "I lost everything to that man. My father's house, his savings. It was all stolen. I tried to fight, but he buried me in legal fees and threats. I couldn't win." His words lit a fire in Alex and Maya. They weren't just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for everyone the lawyer had wronged. With Richard's testimony, they had a chance to expose him once and for all. But the lawyer wasn't going down quietly. Just days before Richard was set to provide an affidavit, he backed out. He stopped returning calls, his silence deafening. When they finally reached him, his voice was flat, almost robotic. "I can't help you," he said simply before hanging up. It didn't take long to figure out why. Carson uncovered records of a sudden influx of money into Richard's bank account, hush money, no doubt. But there were also whispers of something darker, veiled threats, anonymous letters, subtle reminders that the lawyer wasn't just corrupt, he was dangerous. The realization hit Alex and Maya like a cold wind. This wasn't just a legal battle. It was a fight against a man who would do anything, anything, to protect himself. Evelyn, however, remained undeterred. "This changes nothing," she said firmly. "If he's resorting to threats and bribes, it means he's scared. And scared people make mistakes. We just have to keep pushing." But the siblings couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, their every move shadowed by the lawyer's unseen hand. The stakes had never been higher, and the fight had never felt more dangerous. Their journey for justice was no longer just about reclaiming their parents' legacy. It was about exposing a predator. It was about proving that even the most carefully constructed lies couldn't withstand the light of the truth. And as they stared into the abyss of what was to come, one thing was clear, they weren't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The courtroom was cold, sterile, and heavy with silence. Alex and Maya sat at the plaintiff's table, their hands clasped tightly together, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and dread. This was it, the culmination of months of heartbreak, betrayal, and relentless digging for the truth. Across the room sat the lawyer, his polished exterior unshaken, his expression calm. He had traded his smirk for a mask of indifference, but beneath that facade, they knew, was a man fighting to keep his lies intact. Filing the lawsuit hadn't been easy. The lawyer had fought tooth and nail to keep it from reaching court. There were motions to dismiss, legal threats, and even whispers of counterclaims. But Alex and Maya didn't flinch. Their resolve was unshakable. This wasn't just about the money or the house, it was about their parents' memory. It was about exposing the man who had preyed on their family and so many others. Evelyn, their fearless attorney, had been their rock through it all. "This isn't just a case," she told them the night before the trial began. "This is a battle for truth. And the truth is on our side." The trial began with the lawyer's team painting him as a paragon of professionalism. They spoke of his decades of experience, his reputation in the community, his supposed loyalty to the family. He sat quietly, nodding along, his hands folded neatly on the table as if he were the victim of some grand misunderstanding. When it was his turn to speak, the lawyer stood, his voice smooth and measured. "I have always acted in the best interests of my clients," he said, his tone dripping with feigned sincerity. "This will is legitimate. The accusations against me are baseless and deeply hurtful. Alex clenched his fists under the table, anger bubbling beneath his calm exterior. Maya shot him a glance, a silent reminder to stay focused. This was their moment, and they weren't about to let his lies rattle them. Evelyn rose to her feet, her presence commanding the room. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She began by presenting the earlier will, the one they had found in the safe deposit box. The courtroom fell silent as the document was displayed on the screen, the signature unmistakably their parents'. "This," Evelyn said, her voice cutting through the tension, "is the true will of the deceased. It was written months before the one my clients are contesting. And it leaves everything, the home, the savings, and the belongings, to Alex and Maya." The lawyer's team objected, of course, calling the earlier will into question. But Evelyn was unrelenting. She called forensic experts to the stand, one by one, to dismantle the lawyer's lies. The first expert testified about the signatures. With meticulous detail, they explained how the contested will had been forged. "The strokes are inconsistent with the deceased's handwriting," the expert said, pointing to side-by-side comparisons. "The pressure is uneven, and the angles are off. This signature is not authentic." The second expert analyzed the financial records. They exposed the lawyer's fraudulent activities, showing how he had funneled money from the estate into his own accounts. "These transactions," the expert declared, "were made after the deceased's death. They are not only suspicious, they are illegal." The final blow came when Evelyn introduced the handwritten letter from the safe deposit box. She read it aloud, her voice steady but full of emotion. The words of their parent echoed through the courtroom, a haunting testament to their suspicions and fears. "I don't trust him anymore," the letter read. "If anything happens to me, promise me you'll fight. Promise me you'll protect what matters." The lawyer's composure began to crack. His jaw tightened, his hands fidgeted, and his gaze darted nervously around the room. It was the first time he looked less like a confident professional, and more like a man caught in his own web of lies. But Evelyn wasn't finished. She turned her attention to the lawyer himself, her voice sharp and unyielding. "You've spent your career exploiting grieving families, haven't you?" she demanded. "How many lives have you destroyed? How many legacies have you stolen?" The lawyer's attorney objected, but the damage was done. The courtroom was electric with tension, everyone waiting to see how he would respond. And then, in a moment no one saw coming, the lawyer crumbled. Under the weight of the evidence, the relentless pressure, and the knowing stares of Alex and Maya, he broke. His voice, once so smooth and confident, was now shaky and defensive. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he stammered. "It was just an opportunity. I didn't think anyone would notice." The courtroom erupted in whispers, the judge banging their gavel to restore order. Evelyn turned to Alex and Maya, her expression triumphant. They had done it. The truth was out. The verdict came swiftly. The court ruled in favor of Alex and Maya, declaring the contested will invalid and restoring their rightful inheritance. The lawyer was found guilty of fraud and forgery, his reputation shattered, his career in ruins. As the siblings left the courtroom that day, the weight of the past months began to lift. They had fought for their parents' legacy and won. But more than that, they had exposed a predator, ensuring he could never harm another family again. Standing on the courthouse steps, Alex turned to Maya, a small smile breaking through the exhaustion. "We did it," he said softly. Maya nodded, her eyes shining with a mixture of relief and pride. "We kept our promise," she replied. "We protected what matters." And as they walked away, the sun breaking through the clouds above, they knew their parent would be proud. The courtroom was empty now, the gavel's final strike still ringing in Alex and Maya's ears, a sound that marked the end of their harrowing journey. Justice had been served. The lawyer, once untouchable, with his polished smile and silver tongue, was now a man undone. Stripped of his license, disbarred in disgrace, and sentenced to years behind bars. He had spent his career preying on the vulnerable, weaving lies so intricate they seemed unbreakable. But even the most carefully constructed web cannot withstand the weight of truth. The siblings had fought, bled, and endured to expose him, and the court had seen him for what he truly was: a thief, a fraud, a man consumed by greed. The sentence was harsh: prison time, crippling fines, and a lifetime of shame. But for Alex and Maya, it wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. As they watched the lawyer being led away in handcuffs, his head bowed, they didn't feel triumph, they felt relief. Relief that the world now knew the truth. Relief that their parents' legacy was safe. Relief that it was finally over. But the scars of the battle lingered. The fight had taken a toll, leaving them physically drained and emotionally raw. They had spent months reliving their grief, sifting through painful memories, and facing threats that had kept them awake at night. Now, as the dust settled, they could finally take a breath. One evening, back in the family home, the house that had almost been stolen from them, they sat together in the living room, the old wooden floors creaking beneath their feet. The walls were lined with photographs, each one a fragment of their shared history. Their parents' laughter seemed to echo in the air, a comforting presence that filled the silence. Alex broke the stillness, his voice quiet but steady. "We did it," he said, the weight of those words sinking in. "We kept the promise we made." Maya nodded, her eyes misty but full of determination. "But it's not just about what we saved," she said. "It's about what we do next. This legacy isn't just ours to protect, it's ours to build on." They started by deciding to keep the family home. It wasn't just a house, it was a sanctuary, a place where love had been nurtured and memories made. They repainted the walls, repaired the creaky stairs, and planted new flowers in the garden, ensuring the home would stand for generations to come. But they didn't stop there. Their parent had always believed in giving back, in lifting others up, and Alex and Maya knew they had to honor that. They used a portion of the inheritance to start a charity in their parents' name, one dedicated to helping families who had been victims of fraud and financial abuse. The charity became a beacon of hope, a way to ensure that no one else would have to endure what they had. It provided legal aid, financial counseling, and, most importantly, a voice for those who felt powerless. Alex and Maya poured their hearts into it, turning their pain into purpose. With the rest of the inheritance, they invested in their own futures. Alex, who had always dreamed of starting his own business, opened a small cafe, a warm, welcoming space where the walls were decorated with artwork from local artists and where every cup of coffee was brewed with care. Maya returned to school, pursuing a degree in social work so she could continue helping others on a more personal level. As the years passed, the siblings found themselves not just surviving but thriving. They had turned their darkest chapter into a story of resilience and hope, a testament to their parents' enduring influence. One sunny afternoon, standing on the porch of their family home, Alex and Maya reflected on how far they had come. The garden was in full bloom, the air filled with the scent of lavender and roses, their parents' favorite flowers. "It still feels like they're here," Maya said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon. "They are," Alex replied. "In everything we do. In every choice we make. They're with us." Maya smiled, the kind of smile that carried both sorrow and joy. "We didn't just fight for them," she said. "We fought because of them. Because they taught us to never give up, no matter how impossible things feel." In a quiet moment of reflection, Alex and Maya decided to share their story with the world. They wanted people to know that justice wasn't just a concept, it was a fight. A fight worth every ounce of courage and determination. "Never back down," Alex said, addressing the camera, his voice firm but heartfelt. "When you know the truth is on your side, don't let fear stop you. There will be people who try to intimidate you, who try to silence you. But justice belongs to those who are willing to fight for it." Maya added, her voice filled with quiet strength, "We're not just telling our story for ourselves. We're telling it for anyone out there who feels like they've been wronged, like they've been silenced. You're stronger than you think. And the truth has a way of coming to light, no matter how deeply it's buried." Their message resonated far and wide, inspiring countless others to stand up, to speak out, and to fight for what was right. As the sun set over the family home, casting a golden glow across the porch where they stood, Alex and Maya felt a profound sense of peace. They had faced the unthinkable and emerged stronger. They had honored their parents' memory not just with words, but with action. And as the first stars began to appear in the evening sky, they knew this was just the beginning. Their story wasn't just one of loss and betrayal, it was a story of resilience, of hope, and of the unbreakable bond between a parent and their children. Under a sky that once bore witness to innocence now shattered, the tale of the siblings has reached its final, thunderous note. They began as shadows, two ordinary souls wrapped in the thin veil of normalcy. But the world around them, oh, it had secrets. Poisoned truths hidden beneath polished smiles and silk-tied lies. When betrayal slithered into their lives, it didn't knock. It shattered the windows of their trust, stole their peace, and left behind a riddle made of ruins. They were hunted not just by enemies with names, but by systems built to suffocate truth. They stood in courtrooms where the walls themselves whispered deceit. They ran through cities where justice was blindfolded, gagged, and buried beneath bribes. But through the chaos, they didn't break. No, they evolved. The brother. He learned the language of shadows, how to decode silence, how to listen when no one was speaking. The sister? She became a storm cloaked in stillness, calculating, relentless, unstoppable. Together, they turned every betrayal into a blueprint, every danger into a map, every secret into a weapon. When the final moment arrived, and the curtain was pulled back, the world gasped. The guilty tried to hide behind power, but power doesn't save you when the truth is louder than your lies. Justice didn't arrive in a golden chariot, it crawled, bloodied and bruised, but it stood tall in the end. And now, as the dust settles and the echoes of their victory fade into legend, remember this. Corruption wears 1,000 masks, but the fire of truth, once lit, burns through them all. Let this story be a spark in your own heart. Speak up. Stand tall. Tear the mask off the monstrous. And if your pulse still races, if your mind is spinning with every twist we unraveled, then you, my friend, are ready for what comes next. Because if you thought this was shocking, wait until you hear about the millionaire who faked his own death just to escape his family. Madness or masterpiece? You'll have to find out in the next tale. If this story pulled you in, imagine what the next one might do. Don't just be a passerby. Be part of the legend. Tap subscribe and step into a world where every tale dares to go deeper, darker, and wilder. Go on, hit it. The next masterpiece is already loading up. Don't miss it. Subscribe to the channel now. Until the next chapter, keep your eyes open.